What's going on, everyone? I am Josh with 625 Media, and it's Wednesday. That's right, it's Workout Wednesday, and we're here to improve and sculpt our vocal abilities. Yeah, we'll say sculpt. I like that word, sculpt. But this week, we're going to continue with some more scripts. And because we've been looking at the audiobook world a little bit more in our auditions, I thought it might be a good idea to have some practice with some nonfiction. Now, we did some nonfiction in a previous episode where we were reading some like fairy tales, but these are from nonfiction books, which is right where we're auditioning. So I can get all the practice I can get. So let's load the scripts and see what we got. So we're all set. And again, we've been doing a lot of auditions around audiobooks. So I thought it would be a great idea for us to actually do some sample demos. And again, we've gone back to the well of resources that is on voices.com. They've been so gracious to allow us to use these for our purposes here on Workout Wednesday. So let's not delay. Let's get right into it. It looks like we have two different scripts today. These are nonfiction books. And the first one, if you're a literary fan, I don't read a lot of books, but shh. We have a piece from Moby Dick, or The Whale. So, as always, we have our direction. So, our voice age here, middle-aged or mature sounding. So, do I really have a middle-aged voice? Maybe, but I want to be a little deeper in how I read this in order to get that mature sound or that middle-aged sound, you know. We want to sound, we almost want to sound proper, I think. Job description, you'll find two sample scripts here. One lengthy, one intended for practicing, the other shortened and intended for giving narrators a passage to record for their narration demo to showcase their abilities. So we have one long one short one. Have fun with these fictional literature scripts. Try your hand at character reads by giving each character their own distinctive voice. So I skimmed over the Moby Dick one, and it is from the perspective of Ishmael. So we'll probably be working that out, which will be a fun little exercise along with reading the audiobook. Try to assign personality traits to the character that will feed into their vocal inflections and how they say things. So, characters. We're building characters here. So this is less about how we say it and more about the character that we are creating to bring the world to life for the listener or the reader. Categories, audiobooks, style, narrator, and language is English. Great. Accent. Narrate this passage in your natural accent. Only assume an accent if prompted by the description of a character's vocal traits. All right, word count is 266. So this is going to be a little lengthy, and I'm going to tell you, looking at the screen, it is a big block of text. So this might take a couple times, but we're going to jump right into it. I've only read maybe a third of this. Okay, so we're going in pretty cold. Middle-aged, serious, Ishmael. I do believe he's the one that goes after the whale, so he might be a little OCD or compulsive or, I guess, obsessive? Yeah, obsessive. That would be it. So, without further ado, here we go. Here's narration script 1. Call me Ishmael. Some years ago, never mind how long precisely, I have little or no money in my purse, and nothing particular to interest me on shore. I thought I would sail about a little and see the watery part of the world. It is a way I have of driving off the spleen, regulating the circulation. Whether I find myself growing grim about the mouth whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul, Whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet, and especially when my hypos gets such an upper hand of me that it requires a strong moral principle to prevent me from deliberately stepping into the street and methodically knocking people's hats off, then I account it high time to get to sea as soon as I can. This is my substitute for pistol and ball. With a philosophical flourish, Cato throws himself upon his sword. I quietly take to the ship. There is nothing surprising in this. But if they knew it, almost all men in their degree, sometime or another, cherish very nearly the same feelings towards the ocean with me. There now is your insular city of the Manhattos. Manhattos? There now is your insular city of the Manhattos, belted round by wharves as Indian isles by coral reefs. Commerce surrounds it with her surf. Right and left the streets take you waterward. Its extreme downtown is the Battery, where the... What? It's extreme downtown? No. Okay, yeah. Its extreme downtown is the Battery, where that noble mole is washed by waves and cooled by breezes, which a few hours previous were out of sight of land. Look at the crowds of water gazers there. So I don't feel like I've captured the essence of Ishmael there, but I think we got through it pretty well, and I thought we had some really good passages within that whole script. So if you looked at like the lines where he's talking about the damp, drizzly November in my soul, or where he methodically knocking people's hats off, I thought that was a good line. I thought we got into it a little bit. So let's try that one again and see if we can, now that we've read it, see if we can actually capture the essence of what he's saying. The problem is that we're focusing so much on the words and our character, we may not be understanding how he's feeling in this. And if you don't know the story Moby Dick, which I'm not as familiar as others are, I know that there's this guy who went on this crazy, obsessive voyage to find this white whale. We may have a little bit better insight if we know the story better. But we're going to try again and see if we can be a better Ishmael. For Ishmael's sake. Call me Ishmael. Some years ago, never mind how long precisely, having little or no money in my purse and nothing particular to interest me on shore, I thought I would sail about a little and see the watery part of the world. It is a way I have of driving off the spleen and regulating the circulation. Whether I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whether... It is the way I have of driving off the spleen and regulating the circulation. Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a damp, dreary November in my soul, whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet, and especially whenever my hypos gets such an upper hand of me that it requires a strong moral principle to prevent me from deliberately stepping into the street and methodically knocking people's hats off, then I account it high time to get to the sea as soon as I can. This is my substitute for pistol and ball. With a philosophical flourish, Cato throws himself upon the sword. I quietly take to the ship. There was nothing surprising in this, but if they knew it, almost all men in their degree, some time or another, cherish very nearly the same feelings toward the ocean with me. There now is your insular city of the Manhattos, belted around. There's no A there, Josh. There now is your insular city of the Manhattos, belted round by wharves as Indian isles by the coral reefs. Commerce surrounds it with her surf. Right and left, the streets take you waterward. Its extreme downtown is the Battery, where that noble mole is washed by waves and cooled by breezes, which a few hours previous were out of sight of land. Look at the crowds of water gazers there. So other than the missteps, I thought we did a fairly good job with that one. My take on Ishmael, I mean, I only know my own perspective in life and in my own way of delivery, but I felt like I incorporated his feelings into my voice a little bit better that second time around because I knew what was going to be said, and I kind of got a better feel for what he's actually trying to say outside the words. So what it seems like here, excuse me, is he's talking about what drives him to the ocean, and it's like his Prozac. Yes, I said it. It's like his Prozac. Like if he's not on the ocean on a boat, he is the most miserable human being that ever existed. So I felt like we got that there. That's one of those type of things that you want to read a few times and make sure you fully understand. You may even pick up the book and try to find that passage in the book and get context. Okay, so never reading the book. This could be the beginning of the book for all I know. But if it's somewhere in the middle, we might be able to get some context there. And if we're going to be doing the whole audiobook, we're probably going to read that entire book first to make sure we understand it and then get some notes from the author. Good exercise in trying to step into somebody else's shoes as a narrator and not just narrating it. I could have just said, call me Ishmael. Some years ago, never mind how long precisely, having little or no money in my purse. That's not very exciting. So great exercise, great exercise. So let's move on. Narration script 2, practice read. So another classic. The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I do know that. All right, voice age, middle-aged, gender female or male. So I meet those qualifications. So your job description is the same. Let's see here. Have fun with these fictional literary scripts. Art direction is the same as above. So we're assigning characteristics to each person. Language, English. Accent, narrate the passage in your natural accent. Only assume an accent if prompted by the description of the character's vocal traits. Now, with this is going to be a lot easier to do than with the last one because there's so many iterations of the story of Sherlock Holmes, even here in the United States, that not doing it in an English accent makes me a little more comfortable, even though this is an English character and even one of the more famous or most recently famous iterations of the Sherlock and Watson story is a British show, which love, by the way. It'll be easier for me to do this in an American English accent, and I won't feel so awkward doing it. So let's take a look at this, and then we will, because it's 850 words, I want to take a real quick read through, and then we'll get into it. All right, I hope I'm ready for this. Here we go, Sherlock Holmes. He flicked the horse with his whip, and we dashed away through the endless succession of somber and deserted streets, which widened gradually until we were flying across a broad balustraded bridge. Balustraded? Balustraded. Wow. We've only got 3 lines in. He flicked the horse with his whip, and we dashed away through the endless succession of somber and deserted streets, which widened gradually until we were flying across a broad balustraded bridge with the murky river flowing sluggishly beneath us. Beyond lay another dull wilderness of brick and mortar, its silence broken only by the heavy regular footfall of the policeman or the songs and shouts of someone belated party of revelers. Someone. It is some belated party of revelers. There's not someone belated. That would be a very, very sad party. A dull rack was drifting slowly across the sky, and a star or two twinkled. And a star or two twinkled dimly here and there through the rifts of the clouds. Holmes drove in silence. His head... These aren't difficult words. Blah! Holmes drove in silence. His head sunk upon his breast, and the air of a man who is lost in thought, while I sat behind him, curious to learn what his new quest might be, which seemed to tax his power so sorely, and yet afraid to break in upon the current of his thoughts. We had driven several miles, and were beginning to get to the fringe of the belt of the suburban villas, when he shook himself, shrugged his shoulders, and lifted up his pipe. Lift up. You don't lift up a pipe. You light up a pipe. And lit up his pipe with the air of a man who had satisfied himself that he is acting for the best. You have a grand gift of silence, Watson. You have a grand gift of silence, Watson, he said. It makes you seem quite invaluable as a companion. Upon my word, it is a great thing for me to have someone to talk to, for my own thoughts are not over pleasant. I was wondering what I should say to this dear little woman tonight, when she meets me at the door. You forget that I know nothing about that. I shall just have a time. There's no A there. Why do I keep putting A's in places they don't belong? I shall just have time to tell you the facts of the case before we get to Lee. It seems absurdly simple, yet somehow I can get nothing to go upon. There's plenty of thread, no doubt, but I can't get to the end of it. But I can't get the end of it onto my hand. Now, I'll share the case clearly and concisely with you, Watson, and maybe you can see the spark where it is all dark to me. Proceed, then. That's a weird Watson. Some years ago, to be definite, May 1844, there came to Lee a gentleman. Neville St. Clair by name, who appeared to have plenty of money. He took a large villa, laid out the grounds very nicely, and lived generally in good style. By degrees, he made friends in the neighborhood, and in 1877, he married the daughter of the local brewer, by whom he now has 2 children. He had no occupation, but was interested in several companies and went into town as a rule in the morning, returning by the 5:14 from Cannon Street every night. Mr. St. Clair, now 37 years of age, a man of temperate habits, a good husband, a very affectionate father, and a man who is popular with all who know him. May I add that his whole debts at the present moment, as far as we have been able to ascertain, amount to £88 10 I think that's cents, shillings, whatever. While he has 220 standing to his credit in the Capital and Counties Bank. There was no reason, therefore, to think that money troubles have been weighing upon his mind. Last Monday, Mr. Neville St. Clair went to the town rather earlier than usual, remarking before he stated that he had 2 important commissions to perform, and that he would bring his little boy home a box of bricks. Now, by the merest chance, his wife received a telegram upon the same Monday, very shortly after his departure, to the effect that a small parcel of considerable value, which she had been expecting, was waiting for her in the offices of the Aberdeen Shipping Company. Now, if you are well up in your London, you will know that the office of the company is in Fresno Street, which branches out of Upper Swadham Lake, where you found me tonight. Mrs. St. Clair had her lunch and started for the city, did some shopping, proceeded to the company's office, got her packet, and found herself at exactly 4:35, walking through Swadham Lane, on her way back to the station. Have you followed me so far? Yes, it's very clear. Now, if you remember, Monday, was an exceedingly hot day, and Miss St. Clair walked slowly, glancing about in the hopes of seeing a cab, as she did not like the neighborhood where she found herself. While she was walking in this way down Swadham Lane, she suddenly heard an ejaculation or a cry, and was struck cold to see her husband looking down at her and, as it seemed to her, beckoning to her from a second-floor window. The window was open, and she distinctly saw his face, which she described as being terribly agitated. That it seems to her that he had been plucked back by some irresistible force from behind. One singular point which struck her quick feminine eyes was that although he wore some dark coat, such as he had started to town in, he had on neither collar nor necktie. By Jove, Holmes, you've got it. That's not part of it. So, arguably some of the greatest literary work of all time, and we're trying to do it justice. I think after some practice, we could really live up to it, but it was good to see those works and to try to put our own spin on them, because that's really what reading an audiobook is. Now, the author has a vision for how it all works, and if you're working with that client, they should be giving you that vision. They absolutely should be giving you their vision, how they see it, but you also need to be able to put your own twist on it, because everybody's going to interpret it differently. But you are the storyteller. You're the one at the front of the crowd at the public library doing the reading. You're the one delivering that story. Okay? So you need to be able to do that. And I thought those were two really good stories to do. I actually liked the second one, the Sherlock Holmes excerpt, because I'm not as smart as Sherlock Holmes, but I always feel like he's got a similar personality where he gets on a tangent and he keeps going, and his brain is just in 50 different positions at once, and finally he brings it all in to that singular point, that one point where he goes, aha, gotcha. I'm not smart enough to get to the aha, got you, but I definitely have the 50,000 points. But I thought it was interesting to try to project myself in that moment where he is just going on and on and on and on, like point by point by point of this man and this woman and how they come together, and then he gets to the end and he's like, but he's got no collar and he's got no coat. What's up with that? I thought it was good practice, and there are different stories than what I've been reading. But it also gives us a sense of how it could be to read sections of these books, because audiobooks, it's a long game. And while I haven't auditioned for anything extremely long yet, let's say I get something that's really long and it takes 7, 8, 10 hours. We did it I probably read for 20, 25 minutes. Now, if I do those over and over again, my stamina gets built, and I'll be ready for that. So there's a lot of different things there that can help us get ready for an audiobook gig. Stamina and being able to tell the story, really project the story, but also incorporate somebody else's vision of what you're reading. So that's it for Workout Wednesday this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I most certainly did. Please, please, please make sure that you're following us on social media, 625 Media, on all of the social medias, every single one of them. And then follow us again. And then follow us a third time. And then, just do all of that stuff. But we'll be back next week. We're from the Attic, 625 Media. I'm Josh. I'm going to build a sauna for my throat. I'll see you next time.